Welcome to the freewheeling cavalcade of circular motion, thus defined by the octagon table of double-wide mental introspection and dedicated utilitarian outward thinking in defense of zero content. Translation: we ain't got nothing. Oh, hey, folks. Dude here. Coming in again. Excuse me 1 second here. I have to deal with a dog that's being a little too overprotective. Down. All right. Situation being what it is I have the, normal sewer service would be basically you do the stuff and the stuff gets pumped out and it goes. Slight problem being is I'm just a RCH. There would be a red female private area link of measurement. Anyway, so it's an RCH above sea level. I'm 23 feet above sea level. So we're kind of low and trying to pump the stuff. So anyway, trying to pump the stuff uphill doesn't really work so good. So what we have something called grinder pumps. Literally what it is a vertical tank, kind of like a giant test tube. And that thing goes in there and you just simply let fly and sound guy. No. All right. So anyway, you basically let fly. Sound guy. Sound guy. You let fly and it gets pumped. It gets pumped out to the regular sewer service, thus then going downhill to parts unknown. So anyway, you basically deal with your caca. Your caca then goes, sound guy. Anyway, so basically what it is, it's essentially like a giant test tube, and it has a pump in there. It's a grinder pump. So literally, it takes the soup du jour and makes it more soupy, and then proceeds to pump it offshore. So in my community, it's like 147 houses, I think it is, and everybody's got one of these grinder pumps. Well, when the grinder pump fails and they're telling you, hey, man, you're about to flood your entire neighborhood or your front yard or everybody else, there's a little alarm and it's going, and it lets, it should let everybody know. Downside is you really can only hear it in my house on the side on my office. Literally, it's on the corner of my office wall, like back over there. Also, that's like my internet service and my gas service, my electrical service, all that stuff is right there. Well, it was absolutely covered in sticker bushes. So I proceeded to employ one of my favorite devices known as La Machete. So La Machete made short work of it and proceeded to take down the sticker bushes with great alacrity. I got minimal amount of stickers into me. The stickers got maximum amount of bad attitude from me. And it's coming in on a really ass-kicking time before. So anyway, Martinez Sasquatch, man, appreciate you hanging with me tonight. So essentially what it is, this is also coming off a really, long, drawn-out, fun time where I basically picked up somebody on the cusp of like 4 a.m. and then proceeded to drive them up to New York City, and I went to Brooklyn. Now, I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna get very New York here. I don't know Brooklyn from nothing, okay? Because I'm not from Brooklyn. I'm from the Bronx. All right, that's how it works. Sorry, switch that back down to normal speaking mannerisms because everybody's gonna go, dude, it sounds like Bugs Bunny if he keeps doing that. Well, anyway, sorry. Basically picked him up. He got a couple hours of sleep in the back, and we got up there and we made really decent time until we got around like the Verrazano Bridge and like all those other major things. Was it like the Goenthal Bridge or something like that? That's a new one on me. I didn't even know about that one. So like the Goenthal Bridge and the Verrazano Bridge, trying to cross over, literally crossing over the water and going, not towards Staten Island, which is down here, not going towards Long Island, which is over here, but going up a little ways and over and again into Brooklyn. Bronx is up around in here. Manhattan is on the other side. So everybody just goes essentially, oh yeah, New York City's Manhattan. No, it's not just Manhattan. Okay, there's literally the boroughs, the boroughs of New York, Bronx, Manhattan, Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens. All those guys. Okay, they're not really neighborhoods per se. They're kind of more almost like provinces or counties almost. But it's old school way that they used to organize New York City. So I ran him up to Brooklyn. I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to Brooklyn, I'm going to make it worth my time. So I went up there and did a quick search after I dropped the guy off and said, where is the nearest White Castle? So I proceeded to get myself some White Castle to snack on the way home. Brought back a stacker box. So literally, I think it's 20 sliders, and it's a 20th anniversary of Harold and Kumar, go to White Castle. So in there is a, scratch off thing where you basically have a downloadable copy of Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle as a freebie. Now, I can tell you for a fact, going to New York City, not cheap. Going to New York City and buying food, really, really not cheap. But it's not something I do all the time, and I figured it'd be kind of cool. So essentially, I snagged myself some of those guys and brought them back. Now, depictions they're in, I think I could cheat this real fast. Let me see if I can't do this on the fly here. Okay, yeah, I can cheat this real fast. Yep, I can do this really, really fast and easy. So let me go over here real quick. And you literally have a box of 20 sliders. That said, you also then have the interior of said box, which would be the bitty sliders. Apparently, somebody's gotten in there and they've eaten some of the sliders. So if you look at the very, very top there, you can see like just the corner of like the card. That is the card that you literally scratch off and you get your free copy of Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Now, my friend that's in Australia, there's a good messaging app that's secure called Signal. Now, literally, I've been driving him kind of crazy with that. I've been sending him pictures. I've been sending him videos of me scarfing these things down. And he's just like, oh, dude, I really would like to try those. It's like, well, you know what? If you go on YouTube, and obviously I'm on YouTube, but if you go on YouTube, there's a cook guy, and his channel is called Binging with Babish. And literally what he did was he did a copy of the sliders, and it's a slight, well, no, it's not even a slight, it's different. So what he did was he basically recreated the slider, poking the holes in it, doing the steam grilling, which is absolutely critical. That's the only way those things really truly work right. But the YouTube channel that he has is Binging with Babish, and Binging with Babish White Castle order from Harold and Kumar. And he recreated, the was it like 30 sliders, 4 cherry cokes, 4 fries, or something insane like that. It's so much food that even a professional eater like the LA Beast failed in his attempt to scarf down the amount of somebody as skinny as that actor going, oh, I'm going to eat 30 of these things and wolf them down. No, you do not wolf down 30 sliders. Okay, I'm going to tell you what. After 10 sliders, I was not wanting to eat too much more on the way down. Okay, and I literally did an order of 10 sliders, 2 drinks, 2 orders of crinkle fries. Well, the crinkle fries themselves, they're kind of basic. I mean, they're just a basic French fry. Nothing really hugely great about them or amazing about them. But in the zeitgeist of things that I grew up with and was fundamental to me residing upon, being around those things and having access to the true goodness of the White Castle slider, I had to get the crinkle fries. Now, of course, obviously looking at things dietarily, did I want to scarf down 4 cherry cokes? No, I basically had a diet Coke. And that was about as much as I was going to do. On the way back, I figured, timeline and such would be happily mostly digested by the time I resolved myself to be back in Baltimore, dealing with traffic, stupid drivers, and all the rest of this happy stupidness. I mean, literally, here's the way I usually drive a run. Excuse me 1 second here. When I do a long distance run, obviously I'm going out on a full tank. Obviously, I'm also locking on my cruise control. You would be shocked at the number of people that literally can't maintain speed for nothing. And I'm running the same basic speed. Obviously, I'm floating a mile per hour up, a mile per hour down. So I'm floating between 71 and 69 miles an hour, most of the time staying at 70. The Honda Pilot that I have, a 2016 Honda Pilot, it's a little floaty. I mean, sometimes it's a little floaty, and sometimes you really have to give it a little bit more gas to maintain the speed up the hills. It's not the best speed control for cruise control. It's kind of it's squishy. So anyway, the thing about it is the maintaining of speed and keeping within about 2-3 mile an hour window. You would be shocked at the number of people that are like accelerating, decelerating, decelerating, and playing the little F Chuck game. And I'm trying to clean it up as much as possible, but you know exactly what I mean. You're basically in your lane and they're speeding up or slowing down to keep you from passing them. It's like, you know what? If you can't maintain speed, and I am maintaining speed, I'm simply just going to go around you. Or I'm going to put you in such a situation where I'm going to make you box yourself in and feel like a dumbass for screwing with me. And I do that unceremoniously every trip of the train. Mostly because I'm not going to be cowed, I'm not going to be badgered, and I'm sure not going to be messed around with by some puke in another vehicle thinking I'm going to play F-Chuck games. Not this guy. Not in the slightest. So anyway, look at the topical stuff. Speaking of vehicles, this one is actually kind of stupid. And there's no other way to say it other than it is completely kind of stupid. Now, of course, the new manufacturer vehicles, what is it? The swan song of Dodge is that Demon 170, which is 1,000 horsepower or something along those lines. But the thing about it is those control freaks, screaming memeites, and like the we got to protect the planet groups have a positive, absolute, complete, and total hatred for a V8 engine. Just give me 1 second here. I will be right back. Somebody who is four-legged and furry keeps screwing with the guys wrenching on my poop grinder. Anyway, so they have a positive hatred for the V8 engine, and they think upon the application of government province or provincial denigration therein, they will remove the V8 engine from the planet Earth. Got bad news for you, okay? Even though the worst of times in the absolute, complete, and total wasteland of the outback, even Mad Max was finding a V8 engine, okay? So, got an itch right here. Yeah. So anyway, way, shape, and form which we find ourselves, the guys making the cars go, well, we can't make a V8. What could possibly be the next good engine parameter? So what they're kind of doing is they're kind of going full circle. Now, if you know anything about Chrysler, Dodge, the Dodge brothers, all those guys essentially had work trucks. And of that, they were notable for being really rugged, basic, just tanks. I mean, they were really, really well constructed, so much so that they were using them in war. Obviously Ford, Dodge, I think there was a couple other manufacturers aren't even around anymore, like American Motors or like some of the other big notable 1940s and 50s names. The guys that faded by the ethers. And the thing about it is those trucks were known to be good stuff. So Dodge was notable for having, well-made trucks, the Power Wagon and all the rest of these things. That's not just an old nomenclature. That literally was what they intended to say was basically this truck and how they built it. So the Power Wagon in which they made it essentially was a four-wheel drive truck intended to work in the worst of situations. And normally they were encountered with straight six engines. So having a straight six engine, you get a couple of notable things, and I'm a good fan of the straight six motor. Trust me, having a classic Datsun Z, having another Datsun previous to that. So basically, I had a 240 engine, a 280 engine, and they're good poop. So essentially, what you have with a straight six motor is inherently it's balanced. It is a very smooth running engine. Two, it's a torque monster. And from pretty much like idle on, it just pulls well. It's not like one of these things you got to keep screaming and what have you. Yeah, exactly. Martina Sasquatch Room said like Studebaker and Packard. Yeah, yeah, those guys. Um, so essentially, you have a good basic floor plan dimensionally of engine dynamics. It's going to do what it needs to do, and it's going to do it admirably. Well, of that, there is several things that basically make it work very well. Just give me 1 second here. Mr. Doggy is learning. Come here. Up, 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 down, down. Mr. Doggy's being annoying tonight. So apparently, the intrinsic things is essentially it's a very smooth running engine. It's torquey. And if you put forced induction into it, you can make insane power. Now, on the Japanese side, the 3-liter Toyota supermotor, oh my God, that's like 1,000 horsepower without really even doing huge amounts of work to the thing. It basically was roughly about a 300 horsepower engine, but you do forced induction and work to it, it's 1,000 horsepower. Easy. And the other thing too, it's reliable 1,000 horsepower. It's going to run and run and run. So on the Ford side of things, in Australia, they have an engine known as the Barra. So Barra, the Barra. And it's named after, I believe it's the Barramundi or something like that, because it's a red top. Hang on a second, folks. Yeah, what you got? Top notch, man. Thanks a lot. My poop tank is fixed. I now can do everything I need to do and not worry about downstream. Anyway, so the Barra motor is a red top. And of all things, it's a Ford engine. Now, that thing literally is 1,000 horsepower without any hard work at all. Multiple thousands of horsepower with some work. Many, many thousands of horsepower. And the things are just absolutely unbelievably reliable tanks. And so basically overbuilt 6 cylinders, straight sixes are ready to rock and roll. The only downside is there's 2 minor problems with a straight 6. One, it's a long, skinny engine. So if you have it built up in the wrong way, you have flex. Also, you have dynamic rotational aspects on the crankshaft because it's so long, it could be spinning this way in one end, spinning this way on the other end, and it's playing, somebody twisting the towel. And if it's not a well-made crankshaft, it can shear. So you need to have the technology built in such a way that it's actually a good execution. Now, going back round. Of course, the EPA and all those other butt bungs trying to kill off the V8. What has Chrysler done? Well, Chrysler's now decided that they are going to be building a straight 6 hot rod motor, and they're going to call it the Hurricane engine. So they're saying it's going to make somewhere in the mid 1,000s of horsepower, and you can drop it into any vehicle with this booger. So they say that the new strategy is the EPA says no more thirsty V8s. They're going to make mid 1,000 horsepower 6 bangers, stuff them into cars, and they're going to be making tons and tons and tons of power. And of all things, they really don't sound right. They almost sound like big ass vacuum cleaners. It's the strangest engine note when you wind out a straight 6 that's high horsepower with high forced induction. It's really a strange sounding motor. Just give me 1 second here. I got Tigger juice and I'm not going to waste it. So anyway, that's what we're going to now. And orientation of the engine itself, piston count, everybody has made insane horsepower. No matter how many cylinders it is, and no matter what the configuration of what it is, everybody has made high horsepower. Now, for these guys to have this pathological hatred of the V8, I tend to think it's basically the premise therein of we don't like the fact that these guys can make big power right out of the box. Well, let me punch something to you guys, and this is basically what I got going on in my own garage. My current Honda Pilot is obviously VTEC, so it's an intelligent VTEC. It's not like the old ones where you basically drive it along and it's like, where you basically hit like about 4.5K, and then all of a sudden it switches cams and you hear it like really light up. It's not like that at all. It's more of an all along the range. It adjusts the valves to basically get the primary best fuel economy, and then of course performance aspects. But when you shift these things around and you do the technology in such a way, I mean, I got a Mobile that's running on regular gasoline. It makes 280 horsepower, and it'll embarrass a lot of people because it'll 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. So it looks like nothing, and it's peppy. I mean, case in point, I'm driving down the highway and somebody's playing F-Chuck games with me. At that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do the old turbo trick where you basically close the vent, turn off the AC, and pound shit. Yeah. They were very surprised that I literally just took off. And not just took off, but took off and went from like about 70 to like about almost 3 digits in like no time at all. And I was gone. So that's the kind of stuff that can have happen with basically good architecture and technology aspects. Now, there's another thing I tend to do. I don't mind Acura. I rather like Acura, but I probably won't own an Acura until I really get like seriously, independently wealthy anytime soon. Mostly simply because I can go anywhere on the planet and I can run regular gas and I get that performance level. I don't need forced induction. I don't need to go mid-grade or premium fuel. And by the way, if I keep my foot out of it and I'm being nice to it on a steady cruise, I've almost gotten 25 miles to the gallon in an 8-passenger all-wheel drive SUV. That's saying something, okay? When you really truly do the technology right, you really truly can do it correctly. Now, if you were to jump over to the Acura side, that same basic engine, which is a 3.5 liter V6, you would go from 280 to about 310. So 310 horsepower. Okay, I don't need to spend another 40 to 50 cents more per gallon for fuel for 30 horsepower. That's just not going to happen. I'm not doing that. So anyway, the way, shape, and form which we're looking at stuff, we basically have this technology which has been around forever, and they're just simply rewriting a new chapter on the straight six engine parameters. Martinez in the room said, "Wouldn't it be nice if they could if they could bully the EPA and allowing the slant six to come back to the market?" Well, technologically, aspect wise, the slant six actually has some major shortcomings. Dead on reliable as soon as you keep your power level right. If you exceed about 4,800 RPM, you start shearing the distributor teeth. So it's a major problem with those engines. They're really not built to wind out. Also, underneath, it has the same problem as the classic Model A, Model T engines. Not enough main bearings. So literally you have 2 bearings on either end and 1 bearing in the middle, and a lot of space for that crankshaft to be wallying around on high RPM and torque loads. Now, if you're just driving it around in its respective parameters, the worst thing that sucks about a slant six, and I've driven them many times, is it's kind of flat, and then at about like 2,300 RPM, it wakes up. And then it wakes up and goes, "Let's go." And then it kind of goes, "Oh, yeah, I'm out of ass." So like from 2,300 to about 4,500 or so is sweet. And it's really starting to pull nice. And then it kind of just runs out. It just runs out. So the engineering side of things is literally they would need to go in and re-engineer the bottom end of that engine and probably make it about 2 inches longer. Well, if you look at the classic design of like the old cars, like, there's a channel I follow on YouTube called Dead Dodge Garage, and they were working on this one car that they refer to as Stone Soup. And it is an old, oh God, what was it? I think it was one of the older small Plymouth sedans, like back in like the mid 60s, 64, I think it was. And they literally designed this car around the slant six because it was literally the only engine that would fit in that tight ass little engine compartment. And they said, you know what? If we do anything bigger, it just won't go. It literally just won't fit in this thing. So they engineered the car around the engine, and the engine dominated how everything was going to be placed. So literally, the way the engine leaned over, intake and exhaust manifolds, all the rest of that fun stuff. And that's one of the other things too, is also with modern technology, The classic way that you built a slant six or you built any six cylinder was you would have the intake manifold and the exhaust manifold stacked. So one's hotting up the other one, and you're losing efficiency because it's getting overheated. You want it to be warm, but you don't want it to be too warm. So that's one of the major problems is it would get too warm. So the cross flow head situation, and trust me, I've researched it predominantly, mostly around like Datsun type stuff. A cross flow head in a Datsun L28, which was the classic Z motor, is unbelievably expensive because there's only like 2 or 3 people that actually physically make them. Just give me 1 second here. So the other thing too is also you're dealing with old technology. I mean that I'm going to jump back to the Datsun here for a second. That Datsun engine is actually a licensed copy of a Mercedes-Benz engine, and it was a 4-cylinder. But Nissan, in their infinite wisdom, or Nissan, in their infinite wisdom, said, "Hey, this 4-cylinder is really scrappy. It does fun things. It actually runs really really well. What if we slap another 2 cylinders on the back and basically make it more?" And that's exactly what they did for the 240Z engine, and it knocked it out of the park. I mean, the only thing it did at that point was it ran smoother, made more torque, made more power, and to my ear, sounds friggin' amazing. To me, there is nothing that sounds better than whining out a Z on the highway. Yeah, it's like this Ferrari-esque growl, man. I had a lot of fun with mine when I had them, trust me. Anyway, so that thing's going to come out. New technology on old technology, essentially, all that stuff that's coming down the pike. Obviously, you're going to have dual overhead cams with, valve phasing. Obviously, it's going to be cross flow. So intake on one side, exhaust on the other. Forced induction. So, you're going to make even more power. It's going to have plenty of ass. And of course, with modern manufacturing techniques, it'll probably more than likely be either a fully aluminum block with Nicosil or, those hardened aluminum bores, or it'll be a steel insert. I would tend to think that they're going to do it on the cheap and it's going to be an all aluminum block. And they'll do it like the Mercedes does, where you basically have or like everybody does nowadays, where you have the hardened aluminum inside bores for the cylinders. And you have a very light motor that makes ass loads of power. So that's what's coming down the pike on that one. Dodge is not doing anything completely new. They're simply just putting new tread on the same tire and calling it something different. But calling it the Hurricane, I don't know that Stellantis is really knocking that one out of the park. I think they probably could have done something better than the Hurricane. It sounds almost like a sports team. It does really nothing for me. Anyway, scrolly. This one is one of those ones that really kind of truly cracks me up because we all knew it was I got this one sound guy. We all knew it was a large steaming pile of, and I know I normally try to reserve that for Joe Kaka, but it was a large steaming pile of, that's right, a large steaming pile of Kaka. We're going to be talking about the
Oops, I dropped my gerbil.
Okay, I think it's the general statement sound guy, not just the none of that. Anyway, this one I find completely blanking hilarious. Newsmax.com has now got a news story that basically makes me, well, it just makes me laugh. There's no other way to say it for simply what it was, but the blatantly obvious playing to the small minority rather than the greater majority will always render you to failure. So coming up from Newsmax.com, Target, also known as Target or the bougie Walmart, is going to cut their XYZ PDQ Pride merchandise after a backlash. Gee, do you think? So Target announced it will cut its LGBT XYZ PDQ theme merchandise from some of its stores during Pride Month this June after a backlash hit sales of the retailer last year. I tend to think they're going to reduce all the stores to a certain amount, but not remove it completely. But it says, "Oh, oops, oh snap, this cost us." So Target plans to offer a full assortment of merchandise online, but is examining store-level data to decide which physical locations will carry the products. Translation, they're now seeing this. It's going to really blanking freaking hurt. So Target is likely to stock the products in nearly half its nearly 2,000 stores in the U.S. The move comes after Target was forced to remove some items, including certain transgenderized swimsuits, from its XYZ PDQ OU812 themed collection last year after facing customer backlash and confrontations between customers and employees in some stores. Translation, they're like, why are you putting this stuff out here when my kid's going to see it? This is not appropriate. So Target blamed the backlash in part for a drop in sales in its second quarter last year. Oh, or maybe people are going, you know what? I'm not going to support this crap. I'm simply just going to go online and buy it from other vendors. Just give me 1 second here. Target caused an uproar among conservative customers last year when it began selling its quote-unquote tuck-friendly bathing suit in its XYZ PDQ OU812 Pride clothing collection, seemingly designed for children. If you don't know what that is, folks, that's basically where you kind of, stash your monkey so you don't you're not a pop out anymore. You're kind of a, stashed. Yeah, you're stashing your monkey so you're not showing the tail. Yeah, yeah. You're kind of looking more gender. I hate this phrase. More gender neutral. Just You're looking more gender neutral. Translation, you're looking more like a Ken doll or like a Barbie doll, where you're kind of a smoothie downstairs. Ugh. Yeah. Anyway, so on Thursday, a Target spokesperson said it was committed to supporting the XYZ PDQ OU812 community during Pride Month, which is celebrated in June and year round. Well, if you're so supportive, don't take that crap out. Let everybody see it for what it's worth, and we'll figure it out on our own where you fall into the ethers. We can decide what is good for our own kids. You don't need to stuff your form of political gamesmanship in the public eye for people to go, oh, this is so offensive, I'm not shopping here anymore. That's how that one works, Jack. Scrolly. I don't know if you guys heard about this one or not, but obviously there was the destruction of the section of the bridge that landed on the Molly, and I may have talked about it last week, but essentially it was supposed to go off at 5 p.m. So I'm sitting at home working on my computer, it's like the house literally was like, oh, what in the world was that? Then I looked down at the clock and realized it was 5:02 p.m. So they literally did the detonation at 5:02, 4 miles away from me. Hang on 1 second to get my orientation right. So literally that way, 4 miles is the Key Bridge. So anyway, they popped that thing off. I felt it. I heard it. Oh, my stars and garters. That was a heck of a bluey. Scrolly. Scroll. Scroll. Oh, I don't know if you heard about this one or not, but the founder of BLM, Black Lives Matter, Greater New York, was arrested in the Bronx courthouse after being involved in an on-camera clash with a police officer. Now, the cop is basically my size. I'm 5'9". Obviously, I'm probably maybe a little bigger than the cop, but I'm 240. The cop was a little bit, still not a small guy, but the cop was like my height. This guy that was standing in his face by the name of Hank Newsom is 6'6". Okay, he looks like a freaking football player. So he's standing in front of this guy, basically giving him a raft of. Hang on a second, sound guy. I got him. Giving him a raft and a complete pile therein of. Yeah, giving him more than a little bit of that. Let's give me 1 second here. So this guy's standing in this guy's face, and he's, yeah, you this, that, and the other thing, and I don't like that you're this, that, and the other thing, and you're a blah, 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 and so anyway, basically, dude took great umbrage with this one. So they ran his name and revealed he did not return to court for answering a summons he'd received years previously, and was Thor's hammer, was unceremoniously arrested for being a douche nozzle. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Buddy, if you don't have the responsibility to show up in court for stuff that you did previously, got fuzz in my hair, for stuff that you did previously, that is on you. I got fuzz in my hair. I hate that. Anyway, so this guy basically talking smack to the cop, didn't realize, or did realize, or didn't give a care, a rip, what have you, and proceeded to get himself busted yet again. I love when these guys do this stuff to themselves. It's just always entertaining. Sound guy has come up with a backing track for this story. Sound guy, you found this thing, right? You know, you basically got it put together, and you're ready to just play this. Just well, okay, but you got the soundtrack ready, right? Okay, so all right, so now we're good. Okay, so anyway, I'll start it, and we'll play it thusly, but there's no other way to say it except for simply saying it for what it is. But the Truth Press story: helicopter carrying Iran's president has crashed. So search and rescue efforts are underway. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi was reportedly on a helicopter that crashed on Sunday as the regime continues to fuel its war against Israel through Hamas in the Gaza Strip and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Details about the situation are thin, but Iranian media channels have asked for people to pray. Foreign Minister Hassan Abin, whatever, blah, 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 may have also been on board. The Iranian government's holding an emergency session in response to the situation. So basically, this guy was flying around, and sound guy, that's just a little bit insensitive, okay? Sound guy, that's more than a little bit insensitive here, okay? So they're flying around, they were in fog, and obviously okay, anyway, so the guy was flying around, basically, anyway, scroll. Rainy media reported bad weather and quote unquote a rough landing in the northeast of the country may have caused the crash. Do you think? A search is underway, but conditions are making the situation difficult. I almost wonder if somebody didn't set him up to fail, but yeah, did not work out very, very well at all. Great news story. Great news story coming in from AMLand.com. U.S. Senator Tom Cotton, Republican from Arkansas, and a dozen of his Senate Republican colleagues have introduced legislation to eliminate the $200 tax imposed by the government since 1934, or the GCA of 1934, so the Gun Control Act, on firearms and suppressors, quote unquote silencers, regulated by the National Firearms Act, or the NFA. This legislation is known as Repealing Illegal Freedom and Liberty Excises, or quote unquote the Rifle Act. That is beyond freaking excellent. Now, here's the thing about it that most people don't realize. When you obtain a machine gun, a short-barreled rifle, a short-barreled shotgun, or what's referred to as an AOW, or any other weapon, translation, or DD, a destructive device, or a suppressor, a silencer, a moderator, any of those terms that you wish to use to describe something that makes a weapon less noisy, any of those aspect ratios or any of those things involved therein on making a weapon other than civilian friendly. And I do mean really, literally, like, essentially 26 inches overall. Basically, the weapon has at least a 16-inch barrel for a rifle, at least an 18 and a half inch barrel for a shotgun, or it is not a pistol with a stock. It is not a pistol with a foregrip. It is not a pistol with anything that is expressly don't do it except for maybe like, a buffer, tube thing, basically. I'm really not a fan of those things anyway, because it's calling into play, hey, I'm trying to get around the system. Well, not trying to get around the system, but I'm being blank and obvious when I do it. The rests, the rest where you basically rest the thing on your shoulder. It's not the arm braces. It's not a stock, but if you accidentally lean it on your shoulder and cheek it up like a rifle stock, those things happen. It's not the intended use. All those squishy things where the federal government goes, hey, that gives them a reason to go, hey, and they do go, hey, don't do that. So essentially what we find ourselves here is this legislation is going to go roundy round and try to remove the NFA. Now, let's go back to the historical aspects of why the NFA actually came around. Excuse me 1 second here. There's a movie on Netflix called The Highwaymen. And it has basically, notable guys, and you can look it up yourself. But essentially what it is, it's talking about the guys who took down, Bonnie and Clyde. And dude goes into the gun store and goes, all right, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take this, that, the other thing. I'm going to take that Colt monitor. I'm going to take that Browning automatic rifle. So that's 2 machine guns right there. And pretty much just bought them over the counter. So in 1934, what happened is essentially all the gangland warfare, essentially from, removing that, yummy substance known as alcohol from the average man's store and making it underground. Also known as prohibition. Yeah, we noticed how much the gun prohibitions worked. We've noticed how much the drug prohibitions worked. And we sure know how the alcohol prohibitions worked, because they don't. People find a way around. People still obtain what they're looking for. People still get what they wish. So, look at the things as it is. Back in the good old days, the Valentine's Day shooting. What it was is the bad guys were obtaining machine guns, suppressors, everything that they ever possibly could want, simply because they had scads of cash during the Depression. They had reason, they had ability, and they had the functionality to obtain these things. So the federal government, being the federal government, is like, hey, there's that hey thing again. Hey, we're going to overreach massively. We're going to try to remove the fact that these guys can do these things with minimal amounts of issue by making it hard to obtain a gun. And we'll have specific style aspects, mechanizations, size, appearance. Yeah, that's an old one that they've always utilized. So essentially what they did at that point was, if you look at any piece of legislation, and this is one of these kind of little intrinsic civics things that most people just don't even think about. In civics and with the federal government can only regulate under 2 aspects: taxation and interstate commerce. Now, if you look at the actual origination of the federal government, it's really truly intended to do a few things. It's obviously intended, for the public defense. It's obviously intended to set up the mail. It's obviously intended to set up means of taking funding from import, export, excise taxes. And obviously, it does legislation in those components of interstate commerce. That's it. So what did they do to regulate all these weapons that fall under aspect of machine guns, short, silenced, all these other things that basically say this is something other than a civilian approved weapon? They started issuing a stamp, and it literally, I've seen them, it literally is a stamp. It's a big ass postage stamp about that big. So it's literally about 1.5 inches by about 2.5 inches. It literally is a stamp, and it is referred to as the tax stamp. So you look in the corner of this thing, it says $200. So when you apply for and you go through the process and you get a suppressor, machine gun, a short barrel rifle, short barrel shotgun, you know, stocked pistol, any of these things that fall under all these aspects, you're not making a weapon that's any more deadly than any other gun. It's either firing more bullets, it's either being quieter, or it's being a bit more concealable. It is not any more deadly than any other firearm that a civilian possibly can have. And of course, they go up on this thing about, AR-15s are so deadly to the police and this, that, and the other thing. Got bad news for you. Most of your hunting rifles, and I do mean like 75 to 80% of your hunting rifles, shoot a cartridge that is way more powerful than a 223/556. And if you want to take it a step further than that, there's a bunch of them that are way more powerful than a 7.62/308. So the military standard rounds are not the most powerful. They are not the most capable. They are not the longest ranging weapons cartridges around. There's nothing more inherently more deadly about one bullet versus another, whether you're shooting 50 at the guy or if you're shooting one at the guy. It's really the one that hits him in the right spot is the one that takes him down permanently. That's how firearms work, folks. Now, whether it's quiet doesn't make it any more deadly. Whether the weapon's more concealable doesn't make it any more deadly. It's simply the bad guys were utilizing these weapons back in the day. The federal government needed to regulate them, so it generated this process of generating a tax stamp. Now, there's guys who have tested this theory, done it in their own state, and the federal government is pulling their hair out because if you make, use, never leave with, and own in the same state a machine gun, there is no regulation involving the federal government because there is no interstate commerce. The tax would have been simply just a sales tax. And if you want to really truly get hardcore about it, if you really made the thing a gift to somebody else, there would be no tax upon it except for the state tax as a transfer of property within the state. And that's assuming the correct state. Now, the state that actually has done this before and the federal government was completely losing their hit was Montana. Now, Montana they're kind of like Maine. There's like some severely hardcore, gun guy. It's basically hippies with guns. So primarily they are very, very, very pro-gun. However, socially, they kind of tend to slide a little bit more to the left. I mean, they're really not purple per se, but they're not hard red, and they're not blue, but they're not really all that red. They're kind of quasi red, almost purple, but gun related stuff, they are hard charging. Now, that said, Montana is kind of a unique bird because it's bordering Canada. It's obviously a state that really has some seriously sucky winters, but it's kind of way up there in the population of the state. It's not huge, but these guys doing this stuff with the firearms, federal government's losing their head because the state pretty much told the federal government, if it's here, it doesn't leave here, it's been here, you can step off, and if you try to enforce it, we're going to arrest you. And it was kind of an interesting pissing match going back and forth between the federal government and the state of Montana in this regard. And I've never really heard it being resolved one way or the other. And the news media promptly shut the F Chuck up about it because they're like, oh, my stars and garters, don't let this genie out the bottle that if you make it in your state and it doesn't leave the state, it can't be federally regulated. Excuse me 1 second here. Martina Sasquatch, Bozeman is glowing like plutonium. Yeah, kind of like Warsaw, it's kind of like one of those cities, and like the rest of the state is like really, it's just like you have this one little spot. Austin in Texas, Warsaw, Bozeman, Martina Sasquatch knows what I'm talking about. Okay, Martina Sasquatch, that's an interesting point. He says, in the room, I could get a Mark 19 since it is a DD and not a machine gun. How and why? Why not? Well, here's the thing. The Mark 19, which any Marine will tell you, is like the best toy ever. It is a belt-fed 40 millimeter machine gun. Oh, my stars and garters. You guys got to watch the videos of these things being used. The guy's just going, choke, 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 choke. And then, like, a couple 100 yards away, you're just seeing. It is literally the best close in, farther out toy ever invented by the U.S. military. Oh, wow. Okay, well, here's the thing. You get a 19, right? The 19 carries a tax stamp. Here's the problem. Every single explosive round that you were to own, and have for that Mark 19, each grenade would have a tax stamp. So whatever the purchase price was of each one of those grenades, it would be a $200 tax stamp. And here's the thing is once it's expended, that tax stamp is dead. It can never be applied to anything else ever again. You may as well just, lick it, stick it on the wall, because that's all it's ever going to do for you from further on. It is for decoration purposes only. Now, most people that have machine guns, they will photocopy their tax stamp. They'll photocopy their BATF forms, make sure everything is dead square. And here's the dirty, dirty, dirty little secret is some years ago, I had to burn a copy of the FFL for the gun store I worked at, went across the street, put it on the copy machine, ran a copy, and inside the lines, all of it was, this is a copy, this is a copy, this is a copy, this is a copy, this is a copy. So literally the way that it scans, it says this is a copy. So the thing about it is you really never, ever, ever want to have that tax stamp any place where it could possibly be harmed, because once it's used, that's it. They will never, ever issue another one for that weapon. It's dead. And they'll take it and just destroy it. So that tax stamp that's been generated, most people tend to keep it in their safes. And they'll burn a copy of it, and they'll have, like, say you have an M16, they'll take the M16, they'll have a copy of their tax stamp, fold it up, and stick it in the buttstock. Or they'll put it in a pistol grip and, like, tape it in there or something. So there's always a copy of that tax stamp with the weapon. So if somebody goes, hey, what is this? You go, oh, yeah, well, here, read this. And they go, oh, okay, serial number. Yeah, all right, bye. So literally that's the way it works. Martinez sauce, squatch, only need flechettes, flares, and buckshot. No stamp needed. Okay, the 40 Mike buckshot is number 4 buckshot. It's feeble, dude. You will get more ass out of a 410 or a 20 gauge. It's really not. It's not. You'll get more ass out of a Nerf round. You know what those are, right? The big rubber bullets coming out the 40 Mikes. Yeah, if you Nerf somebody, they're going down. I used to work with a guy. And he was over in the sandbox, and they were trying to capture a high-level target, read like some local chieftain or some such. And so he's walking around. He's got his 40. He's got his 40 millimeter. He's walking around. And the guy jumped out on him and scared him. He just went boop, and nerfed him from about 10 feet away. And it just literally looked like somebody just walked up to him and just hit him in the chest with a cannon shell. Literally caved his chest in. DIA right there. Or DRT, dead right there. Literally dropped the guy dead. And they were pissed at him. They're like, why did you kill the guy? He's like, well, he came out, scared me. I thought he had a knife. He's like, yeah, well, we were trying to capture him for intelligence purposes. You just earned poop detail, dude. Yeah, he got a lot of trouble for that one, but it is what it is. It's one of those ones where if you try to do it, you don't do it right, you're going to get burned. If you do it right, you do it, somewhat, you're still going to get burned. So, it's the classic thing in the military. You do it wrong, you do it right, you're F-chucked. It's just life in the big city. Scrolly. This one, I cannot do it justice. But I'm just simply going to try to clean it up as much as possible. So a DoorDash driver was going to the address for which he supposedly was supposed to be making a delivery. Well, supposedly an S-hit bag who assembled and made his own ghost gun, translation, a home assembled firearm with no serial number, looks like a Glock copy there, tried to rob the guy. Slight problem. The DoorDash driver was also armed. Well, next thing you know, these guys are trading rounds, ducking behind stuff, doing the classic, over the hood of the car kind of stuff. Nobody hit anybody. The cops showed up. The guy got busted for trying to rob the DoorDash guy. And the guy that shot at him didn't get a problem. So essentially, this guy was trying to stick him up and, do a carjacking. Lost. and got busted. Uh, scroll. Okay, two good dirtbag stories. Uh, the court is now further allowing appeals on Trump's part to remove Fannie Williams from the fraud case. Why? Because she has so many things blown up on her, all kinds of disreputable, nasty stuff with associated people. It's getting interesting. Supposedly now also the House Judiciary votes to hold Merrick Garland in contempt for not giving up that information that was requested by Congress. So in holding back on info, that's telling us you have something to hide. Scrolly. This one is beyond hilarious. Coming in from Mississippi, not a blue state at all. So, coming in from Mississippi, for the Daily Caller, men are now banned from using the female toilets in public restrooms, the state governor said on Monday. So, Republican Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves announced on social media he has signed the quote-unquote SAFER Act on Monday morning. The law prohibits people in Mississippi from entering restrooms and other sex-exclusive areas in public buildings that do not align with their biological sex, according to the legislative text. Wow. Anyway, so quote, today is a win for girls and women across our state, and I was proud to sign SB 2753 into law, Reeves said. Quote, you have my word that as long as I'm governor, our state will do anything in its power to keep Mississippi's daughters safe. So basically, it could be said that pretty much there was more than a little bit of
Sarah.
Yes.
You
okay. I sound guy. I think they got the I think they got the idea.
Oops, I dropped my gerbil.
Anyway. Stop that.
Look at this nasty ass. SYZPDQOU812.
Okay.
SYZPDQOU812.
Oops, I dropped my gerbil.
I think they got the message, sound guy. Anyway, scrolly. Wow. This one I find very, very interesting. Now, it seems to be a case where the centrist guys or the independents or I don't know why they're ever actually expressing this, but they're saying people of the Libertarian Party are, lining up behind Robert F. Kennedy Jr. No. There's a cadre of some people. I wouldn't say it's like a huge group of people where everybody's saying, "Oh yeah, he's the best alternative to these two guys that are currently running." He's not. And there's a really good news story about him that shows the kind of duplicitous, scummy, just icky stuff about RFK Jr. Besides the fact his voice sounds like, I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to make fun of the guy's impairments, but with that kind of a vocal thing going on, he's hard to listen to, and I do mean hard to listen to in extended periods. But coming up from TruthPress.com, RFK Jr. lists his voting address at a Westchester home that's in foreclosure, and his neighbors have never seen him in it. So, presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. lists his residence to vote as Tony Westchester County address, which is in foreclosure proceedings for non-payment court records show. The independent candidate, he is not independent, claims that his voting address is 84 Croton Lake Road in Katona. Though he's not an owner of the $1 million property in arrears, does not show up in recent searches for it, and some longtime neighbors and even local authorities were shocked at the notion that it's his home. Quote, he does not live here, a local cop insisted on Sunday, but RFK Jr. also has the same address listed on his quote-unquote domicile or residence on his presidential nomination petitions filed in New Hampshire in recent months, according to records which were obtained by the Post. So, a review of voting records show RFK Jr. voted in primary and or general elections using that New York address as recently as 220, and in 2018, 2016, 2014, 2013, 2011, 2010, and 2008. So he voted by mail during the COVID outbreak using the Croton Lake address too. The legal owner of the property is Barbara Moss, the wife of longtime RFK pal Timothy Haydock, Westchester doctor. So Haydock and RFK Jr. served in the best man at his first wedding, and RFK is the godfather of Haydock's daughter. The U.S. Bank Trust Company filed a foreclosure action against the Moss, an interior landscape designer, in state Supreme Court in March, claiming she owed $46,106 plus interest. A settlement conference is scheduled for June 7. Quote, a mortgage foreclosure case has been stated against you for the property located at 84 Croton Lake Road, Katona, New York, 10536. Do not ignore this notice or any court papers you receive. You may lose your home. 9th District Judicial District Judge Annie Minahan said on April 26, notice to Moss. The Kennedy campaign insisted on Sunday night statement that the home RFK Jr.'s is his, quote, official address, end quote. Quote, he receives mail there, his driver's license registered there, his automobile is registered there, his voting registration's from there, his hunting, fishing, falconry, and wildlife rehabilitation licenses are from there. He pays rent to the owner, the campaign said. The statement went on to say the law office is in New York and he pays taxes to the Empire State. Quote, his father was a senator from New York. New York has been his residence continuously since 1968 when he has frequently lived elsewhere. He has never claimed any other state as his residency, the campaign statement said. Yeah, but the guy is just squishy. There's nothing reality-based in his stuff. It's just icky. All right, let's just be completely honest here. It is icky. Anytime you basically do this whole, bait and switch thing, well, I live here and I does that and the other thing, and it's squishy, folks. It's really freaking squishy. And I'm not a fan of anybody that can't represent themselves honestly. And if you're going to do this whole bait and switch thing where, oh, yeah, well, I rent from this person, this is my address, and you don't even show on it, where do you really live? Because you are a carpetbagger, kind of like Hillary Clinton. She was never a New York resident when she ran for that seat. Ugh, just ugh. Oh, music. All right, guys, we're going to break up on this one, folks. Eco Cape Tendering is always, you know what you love it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. Get a gold star for attendance, good stuff like that there. I will see you next week unless I come up with something sooner or Sound Guy comes up with something crazy. Who knows? He's consistent. All right, so I'm going to bring up those folks. Eco Cape Tendering is always, you know what you love it. I will see you guys next week. Have a good one, and I will catch you then. See you guys later, and have a good one. See you guys. Raiders!